you see no end in sight, is perseverance, because if I gave up, I wouldn't be here right now, so.
And how did you keep that positive mindset throughout the whole process?
Something that I didn't do, but I strongly recommend that other interns do is...
Hello and welcome to Cutting Edge. In today's episode, we're joined by Tolu Osisanwa. Pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, really, so good to have you. And also to introduce Tolu. So Tolu is a private equity analyst at Hamilton Lane. So Hamilton Lane is an alternative investment management firm with close to $100 billion of assets under management. Tolu was also part of the 10,000 Black Interns cohort, where she was nominated for an award, exemplifying her value that she brought during her work placement at the time. So there's so much to talk about in today's episode. Really excited to have you on board. Perhaps if we kick off with a bit more about yourself, your role, perhaps a bit more background, then we go from there.
Sure, yes. So, hi everyone, I am Tolu. I went to the University of Southampton. I just graduated this past summer and I did business analytics. Essentially, this whole journey started off through my mum, actually. She is the person that sent me the kind of a WhatsApp message saying, any Black students, here you are, you can apply to 10,000 Black Interns. And I had never heard of it because it was a new scheme. And I was like, okay, cool. Because at the time I was in my second year. That's when, internships, placements, all of that is kind of in the forefront of what you need to do. So I clicked it, I read through the page. At the time, it was only 100 Black Interns because it was its first year. They didn't really know, how big it was going to get and how big it has now become. So I read through it. They said, make an application for investment management. If you're interested in the finance sector, we'll be interested to, put forward an application for you and you can get an internship for the summer. And I was like, perfect, exactly what I'm looking for. I fit all the qualifications. Let me do this. So I applied. This would have been around August, September time. So right before I was going into my second year. And I completely forgot about the application because I did it in August and I didn't hear back until November, actually. So at the time I was applying for all different types of internships, different placements. And I heard back in November, I got an email saying that a company wanted to interview with me. And I was like, oh, great, this is amazing. Internships preparation is so stressful. I'm sure you've gone through all of that. So I was like, great, a company, let me write it down, start preparing for it. This company actually wasn't Hamilton Lane. This was a completely different company, still in private equity, but a different one. And I got it and everything was amazing. So I found out I got that internship in December. So that was kind of the end of the story there. I thought, great, in summer, I have an internship for 8 weeks with a private equity company. It gets to now Easter. Exams are heating up. Second year was very stressful, let's just say that. And I get a call and I'm like, who is this? I get a call and it's Esther. She was the previous program director last year for 10,000 Black Interns. I was like, great, they're doing wellness checks on us. This is amazing. What a great scheme. And she was like, oh, by the way, the firm that was previously going to intern with you can't intern with you anymore. And I was like, oh. So I kind of felt like my whole world was crashing down because I was so stressed from exams at the moment. And when I just found the internship that I just got 3 months ago is cancelled, essentially. And I was so upset. And she was like, no, but don't worry, we have other firms that didn't find an intern as well that we can push you forward to. And that is where I found Hamilton Lane. So the next day they emailed me. They were like, hi, we've heard that, you're still looking for an internship. We'd love to interview with you. And I had about 3 interviews with them. And then I got the Hamilton Lane internship.
What a story.
Summer. So it wasn't the step-by-step that most people got, but I think everything happens for a reason. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have even known about Hamilton Lane. So everything kind of worked out in the end.
Absolutely.
At the time, it didn't seem like it. I was very stressed, but no, it worked out.
This idea that when one door closes, another door opens, and it's just sort of
That's
onwards
exactly
and
what my dad said when I was stressing. He was like, no, this is all going to work out. But it did. It
exactly.
Really did.
That sort of feeds into, I read Elon Musk said something like, you should take this approach of fatalism, that everything is already set out, and that in that respect, you shouldn't stress about any outcomes out of your control. You should just take it on the chin. But in this respect, it all seems to have worked out just fine.
It really did, yeah. No, the other company was amazing as well. But, Hamilton Lane was great. Like the way everything just worked out was amazing, I would have to say.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned 10,000 Black Interns. So would you be able to expand a little bit on what that is, how you came across it, and again, how that helped you to land your private equity role?
So 10,000 Black Interns was previously called 100 Black Interns. So the scheme is in its second year out of 5. So it started last year. So I was part of the first cohort when it was still called 100 Black Interns. And it was essentially to get, at minimum, 100 Black students between 18 and just postgraduates. So I think you can still do it if you're a master's student or just finished uni, etc. To get them at the time just into investment management schemes and companies, internships. I think it was just internships, not placements, but in the financial sector. So that was essentially their whole basis. Again, they were just expecting 100 applicants and they thought they would, expand from there. I think last year they got, 1,000 applications last year, and they secured 200 internships, or 200 students secured internships with the scheme, including me. This year, I believe I heard they had 10,000 applications.
Wow.
Hence 10,000 Black Interns, and over 2,000 students had secured internships for this past summer.
That's an amazing success rate.
Exactly, yeah. So I think the whole basis was to close the gap in the financial industry. So obviously we know that there is a gap between BAME students, Black students in the industry. So it wasn't necessarily to take places from other people, but to close the gap between Black students entering the financial industry, because, we all have the talent. It's just more giving people the opportunity. So that was their whole basis for the scheme, and it's worked so well. I've heard no complaints from anybody about it. They gave us CV preparation, interview preparation, how to sell yourself. So it was amazing. They kind of did weekly, I think even 2 days a week, they did CV calls, Zoom calls about anything. You can send in questions. They would have different people from the industry giving us talks. It was amazing.
Oh, that sounds, what a great initiative as well for them. And I couldn't agree more that there is a gap. And the fact that you have 10,000 Black Interns plugging to a very large extent with that huge success rate is great. Next thing we know, it could be 100,000 Black Interns.
I hope so.
Know, right?
Yeah.
And I think for the sake of the financial industry, we need more companies and firms like 10,000 Black Interns, because it's just doing so much. And then you said that you're still part of this community today. And so how does that work? Are you still in touch with people there?
Yeah, so the scheme is so great that once you get an internship, or once you even apply, you're kind of locked in for life. So I would say it's like an alumni thing. They'll send you emails, and it's not just a 1-year thing. You can reapply. So if you did an internship in the first year, you can by all means reapply for the next couple of years, depending on where your journey's gone. But yeah, no, they will still update you with they want to know how your internship went, if you got one, if you landed a job offer with them, or a graduate scheme with the said company, if you're planning on reapplying. They really do want to know how they can improve, for example, what you liked about the scheme, what you maybe want to change. It's very much, they keep you, I still get emails from them to this day. I'm in touch with the whole team. The whole team are so lovely. They really do care. It's not just we'll find you an internship and you're on your way. They want to hear from you. They want to know about your experience, and they do really focus on how they can help students the next year, and what the previous students went through, what they liked, what they can improve, so they can help the next cohort for the next year and the year after, for example.
Does sound like a mentorship program
exactly.
in a way, right? That's such a great community to have access to. And definitely being locked into something like that is the perfect kind of setup going into the industry, especially coming out of a graduate degree, and it's a big change going into the corporate world, starting a job in the industry. And actually, if we wind back to your second year, so you've just gone through this application process, you'd heard back that your initial intern was not going through, internship offer wasn't going through. And then this opportunity at Hamilton Lane came up. So this was in private equity, I presume, your internship. Had you familiarized yourself with the private equity industry? Did you know what to expect? Was that what you had in mind?
No. I think when I was applying for jobs, I'd heard what private equity was. I didn't know what it was. When I started getting interviews, obviously I watched YouTube videos. I tried to learn as much jargon as I could, what is a fund size, what is an equity ticket, as much jargon that I could physically take in, I tried to learn. But I feel like now that I am part of the industry, I don't think I had any expectations. I just kind of wanted to go in with fresh eyes. I have no idea what to expect. It's my first job, my first internship. I didn't really have any expectations. Now that I'm in it, I am loving it. But no, I had no idea what private equity was. And I wasn't really focused on doing private equity. For me, it was like, I will do anything in finance, whether it's private equity, banking, I will do it. Now that I'm in private equity, I'm glad that it was private equity, but no, I had no expectations going in.
That's a great approach because so many people take the perspective of this traditional, you do a year, 2 years of investment banking, go into private equity with a set idea of what the industry is and how it works based on maybe what they've heard online or they've watched a few videos. But I think going in with a fresh mindset, being open, was a fantastic thing to do. And that's clearly paid off and shown that
I hope so.
you learn on the job. And like in any kind of career in finance, you just sort of get exposure to the team. You pick up on the jargon, like you mentioned, and the next thing you know, you're an Excel wizard.
Yeah. Not yet. Hopefully soon I will be, yes.
All those shortcuts to get heads around.
Oh, gosh.
Perfect. And I mean, if we go back to private equity and say, so you were familiarizing yourself with this, have you always been set, I guess, on the financial industry coming into this? And did this private equity opportunity come up because you said you were open to all kinds of roles within the sector?
Yes, I definitely wanted to do finance. It was finance or nothing for me at the time. There wasn't really anything else I wanted to do. In school, it was economics and business. Those were my two favorite subjects, hence why I pursued it in university. It was just finance for me. Definitely because the private equity, opportunity came up, I pursued it. If it was another opportunity, I probably would have if it was still in finance. But our private equity was definitely at the forefront, I would say. Out of everything in finance I could do, private equity was definitely up there.
Sure. This is going to be very interesting to our audience who are going to have their ears pricked up when they hear the words private equity.
Yeah.
And actually, while we're on the subject, would you mind shedding a bit more light on what does private equity mean? What are some of the things maybe you do in your role, or if not, on a broader context? What is the main purpose of private equity? What can you expect working in that kind of job?
Sure. So me particularly, I'm on the fund investment team. So my day-to-day job is essentially we get new deals in and we get deals from general partners or GPs as we call them. And they're basically fund managers. And they are the ones that create a deal, and a fund can be anywhere from 1 million to mega funds, which is maybe 20 billion or more. So a very wide range. And essentially they are looking for investors. We call them limited partners or LPs. They are looking for investors to put money into their fund. They will then use that fund to, if it's a buyout fund, they'll use that fund to go find different portfolio companies, different businesses that they will invest into, try and make the company better through organic means, maybe M&A, mergers and acquisitions, any way they can do to add value to that company. They will increase the profits of said company, and that will essentially feed back to the investors. So say you put 1 million back in, they invest in companies that do extremely well, you're going to get 3 million back out, or for example. So it's all about, investors putting their money in and then hopefully growing their investment tenfold.
Sure. So in other words, it's an active investment management approach where you're looking to generate a return from making operational improvements or say business improvements from M&A, scalability, synergies, and then delivering on that. And then in funds, do you think usually these are on a sector basis, geographic basis? Does it completely vary firm to firm?
Completely varies. So some companies are, very niche. Some companies might only operate in Europe, might only operate in North America. Then you have the big companies like KKR, the Blackstones that will do everywhere, everything, any sectors from consumer to tech, North America to South America to Europe. They can do anything. It really does depend. And, some investors will have their preferences. They only want to invest in Europe. They only want to invest in North America. You will find a fund that suits your needs, essentially.
Really interesting. And so having gone straight into the buy side, what are your initial impressions of the industry, the people that you've come across there, and also perhaps the learning curve that you've faced?
Yeah, so I'm in my second month now officially, and it's very intense. I'm learning a lot though. It's definitely being thrown into the deep ends, trying to get the language, trying to get what's going on. It's a lot to take in, definitely. But so far, everyone I've met is lovely. You know, everyone, all the fund managers I've met, they've just been so passionate about what they do. My managers as well have been so useful, trying to tell me, you know, the ins and outs, what to expect, what to look out for, maybe with their track records, their organisation, etc. Everything has been a lot to take in, and I think it will take a while to take it all in, but everyone I met has been really nice.
That's great to hear. And then you mentioned earlier that you had a broad remit of what you do and do not look at in general, and it's helping you to gain exposure to all sorts of sectors and opportunities, so to speak.
Yeah,
oh, that's wonderful. Excellent. So it sounds like your time at Hamilton Lane has gone fantastic.
Yes, it has.
And obviously you converted your internship into this full-time position. So one element which we do focus on the podcast is helping students with advice on the application, but also how to really succeed in their internship. So did you have any valuable lessons, feedback, or takeaway from your internship that you'd pass on to our audience?
Yeah, no, I would say one thing that I would give as advice, something that I didn't do, but I strongly recommend that other interns do, is have a book or at least maybe a Word document with every definition that you've learned, every person you've met, anything to do with the firm that you feel like will be useful. Have that in one kind of area so you can look back on it. Oh, what does this word mean again? I know where to find it. What did this person do? I would like to speak to them again. You know, have everything in one area. So that would be very good in terms of organization. That would be something I would recommend. And then in terms of, you know, making an internship into, you know, a full-time offer, one thing I would say is do every little task you do with enthusiasm. So I feel like there's some tasks that you'll have to do repetitively. Probably each day you'll have something that you just need to do over and over again. If you do that with a smile, or if you do that, you know, if you do that with enthusiasm, your manager can see, oh, this person, even though, you know, it's monotonous, it can be a bit boring, sure. We can see that they're still enjoying the work, they're still taking from it, even though, you know, it might not be the most exciting thing. So by the time the big project comes up, they're going to be looking to you because you've already done the small task with such enthusiasm. They'll know that for the big task, you're going to have the same attitude no matter what you do.
Yeah, that's great
So
advice.
I would say that'll be definitely something to take on board.
The mixture between being organised and structured and knowing what you need to know, jargon, terms, who you need to speak to, but also you have that regimented approach when it comes to work ethic, delivering things on time, being punctual, and getting the easy victories so that you set yourself up for success with the bigger projects, like you said. And was that very much in line with the feedback you got when you converted?
No. I think a big thing with an internship is showing that you want to be there.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're going to be there for 6 to 12 weeks. So if by the third week you're saying, oh, I've already done this, I don't want to do this anymore, it's not going to be a good look to your managers who are looking to see if you're going to be a good team player in the future. So no, definitely do everything with enthusiasm in your internship. 6 weeks to 12 weeks doesn't seem like a big amount of time but your managers will be looking at you during that time to see whether you are someone they can bring forward.
Exactly. And the conversation might be the case where the manager or the person in question reviewing will ask as many people as they can, hey, have you worked with Tolu? What were they like? And the more feedback you get that's positive, the higher the chances that, you know, you'll be considered for a full-time conversion. And so bearing that in mind on the networking, did it come naturally to you? Did you have to have a structured approach of who to speak to and when? How did that look like?
My manager's amazing. In my internship, she gave me a list of different people throughout the whole global companies, bearing in mind the company is 20 offices globally. At the beginning, she gave me a list of around 3 people per week to meet with globally. So at the start, I mostly met with the people on my team in my office. And then by second and third week, she would say, speak to this person from the Hong Kong office, speak to this person in Philadelphia, which was great. Very nerve-wracking, but great. One thing that helped me is I made like a format template for everyone I spoke to because, you know, it doesn't have to be a whole new kind of subject starter each way. So I would have, you know, hi, so-and-so, my name is Tolu and I'm an intern that just started in London. I was referred to from my manager, so-and-so. And I would really love to hear about your job role, which is in so and so. So that's a great way to, if you feel nervous, that's a great way to get the conversation started. Just change the name because again, you also want to be efficient at the same time because you still have other work to do apart from networking. So being efficient is great. So having that template, and at least once you've got that template, it's going to be the same thing every time. So it's much easier than trying to think of something on the spot. And I feel like that can make you a bit more overwhelmed because you have to think each time. Having a template is a lot easier, and that helped me a lot.
And that was an email that you would
use email. We use also any messaging site, Teams, etc. that your company might use.
Absolutely, because then there's also the risk of if you go up to people and they're busy or on a call, or you don't know if it's a good time or not, versus email, they can look at it in their own time. I think that's a great approach. And actually, when you do talk to them, is that tend to be over coffee? Do you go to a meeting room? Is it formal, informal? How did that work?
During my internship, it was virtual because of COVID. So a lot of mine were over Zoom or on Teams. Now that it's more in person, a lot of it is in person as well. So, and definitely informal. Yeah, everyone wants to get to know you. I hope no one is mean to you. Everybody loves to get to know the interns, likes to see your background, and hopefully you'd like to hear about theirs. So everyone, for me, I met nobody that made me feel awkward or uncomfortable. Everyone was so nice. I was probably the awkward one because I was just so nervous speaking to the principal of so-and-so, It was daunting, and it would be daunting, but by the end, by week 6, it was a breeze. And I knew they would be lovely because everyone I met was. So
well, that speaks volumes in terms of the company culture and how they made you feel. And I think any financial institution should strive to make interns feel at ease, and especially now that it's increasingly competitive, not just for applicants to secure an internship, but actually for companies to secure interns, that it's all the more reason why they should be making an effort to approach interns, not just vice versa. So I think that's a good approach in terms of the template. And like you say, the importance of maybe a database or some sort of tracker to say who you've talked to and when. I mean, I'm very forgetful. So things like that definitely help a lot. And it's sort of taking a systematic approach, but then when you're talking to people, very sort of human element, informal, sit back, just ask very open-ended questions. Good.
And I would definitely say send a thank you note as soon as the meeting's over. So that's what I try to do. Or at least at the end of your internship, have, again, a template. Templates always come in handy. But send a thank you note to every single person you talk to. It could be a lot, and it probably will be a lot if you did, 3 people a week and you're there for 8 weeks. It can be a lot, but it would mean so much. And everyone was so nice. They were glad to see that I enjoyed the conversation, and it shows that you enjoyed the conversation as well, and that you were listening and you learned from said person. It can really go a long way, and I think that would definitely push you again to this person could be a great person to join the team if they can see you're grateful for even going out and engaging with people.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I would say that's one of the top tips so far on the podcast series we've had, is the art of follow-ups.
Yes.
As an investment banking analyst, if you're a private equity analyst, in general, you're not taught the art of emails, and it's a very long, complex topic, and obviously we don't want to get bogged down on Outlook in a podcast series because it's not particularly exciting, but following up after meetings is so invaluable.
Definitely.
And actually, it's post-investment banking that I've realized just how important follow-ups are, because it shows engagement. It shows that not only did you have a good chat, but you're actioning the next steps that you've discussed. And I think to our audience, that will be an invaluable takeaway, is not just obviously getting the conversation, doing it right, but following up. And if you see that person in the office again, just say hi, thanks. Yeah. Oh, you were talking about XYZ. Did you see what's happened in the market? Yeah. So keeping a fluent conversation over time.
Definitely. Right? And don't be alarmed if they don't remember your name.
Yes.
These people are very, very busy, and you did have a 30-minute conversation, but it will go a long way just to be if you can tell they're struggling to remember, just say, oh, remember, hi, I'm Tolu. We spoke last week about XYZ. They will... It will click. Yeah. They will remember you, but no, don't be alarmed that, oh no, they've forgotten about me already, because people are busy. Yeah. They have a lot on their minds, but they're not going to forget the conversation that you had. So
they're probably talking to other interns too.
Right.
It's helping them to sort of help you.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Good. Well, I'm really glad we touched a bit more on how you broke into private equity, your roles and whatnot. And it seems like as you've just started now, you're very happy and open to see how private equity sort of evolves and what that direction that takes you in going forward. And actually, perhaps if we talk a bit about what's going on in the market at the moment, in the broader industry as a whole, you've joined at an incredibly interesting time, obviously. I think inflation is the buzzword. You've got geopolitical conflict and whatnot. Do you see that trickle in? And is that a big talking point within the industry at the moment?
Yes and no. It hasn't started trickling in just yet, because typically around September, October time is usually where the industry peaks. So I think there's a few peaks, September, October, around springtime, and then it's sort of around in summer. So typically this would be the busiest, or coming up to the busiest season in the industry. So I think we'll definitely see more deal flow regardless. But compared to the past 2 years, I have been told that because of the incoming recession, inflation, things will start to slow down. And definitely, I feel like that would trickle down into the industry. We will see less funds coming to market, maybe smaller deal sizes. Not sure to yet, still learning. But yeah, I feel like that will trickle in a bit. Yeah.
Would you agree that there's a conundrum of there's so much dry powder in general across the entire world and financial industry, coupled with this conflicting thought that people are more selective in what they invest in, and actually there's so much capital out there, but actually few opportunities that fit their criteria?
Yeah, exactly. I think exactly what you said, that I feel like there will be slightly more pickiness, I guess, or investors will be slightly more particular where they're going to be investing their money into, which they already are right now. So with an incoming recession, I feel like that would be heightened, definitely. So people are going to be way more particular about which funds they will invest to, if at all, if they do decide to invest this year.
That makes sense. I think an example that comes to mind, speaking to colleagues in the industry, is renewable energy projects. And you have a finite amount of, say, wind farms, and so many investors with that in their remit of, hey, they want to invest, it's infrastructure, it's good contracted revenue they can predict. And so you get a big pool of investors for one asset, and hence, because there's an outbidding process involved and it's an auction, you can pay a high price for one of these real assets, so to speak. And hence the returns are getting diminished to an extent over time. So it would take either a lot more opportunities coming to market, or perhaps firms to take different approaches, maybe to cater to this chicken and egg issue we're seeing at the moment. But that leads me to the question on real assets, actually. You mentioned infrastructure. So do you see real assets being of importance in private equity right now? Are firms turning towards that investment criteria?
No, I hope so. So I think even in the industry, we're seeing more people being hired just for real assets, So I think we will see a shift going towards maybe more infrastructure, more renewable energy, like you said, in that industry, yeah.
I see. And do you think that that takes a particular skill set coming in, or is it something which, like any area in private equity, can be learned on the job? Is it a mix?
I think a mix, yeah. I think anything can be learned on the job. I haven't had too much real asset exposure so far. I hope I do in the future, but I think quite a few things can be learned on the job, and I hope I'll get exposure to that in the future.
Yeah, that's very useful context, especially on the market, what's going on, and how that's how you're seeing things at the moment, actually. And actually, it's a good segue into what you did to prepare for your full-time role. So you've done your internship, you're now focused on third year, getting exams out the way, and then it was a short turnaround, I remember you said, right?
Yes. So I had my last exam end of May, and I started the grad program second week of July. So it was about a month and a bit before So it was definitely a mix of trying to enjoy my last summer at university, and I also have to prepare for this job because I can't mess up this opportunity. No, but the Hamilton Lane were great. They gave us 2 books to read. So one was the Private Equity Playbook, and the other was the New Tycoons as well. So they gave us 2 books to read in preparation. So I was kind of juggling that at the same time. But both books were very interesting. The Playbook was amazing for learning. It was what is private equity in about 200 pages. Very quick, simple, to the point. If you kind of need like a what is private equity, I still don't really know what's happening, I would recommend that book. That book helped me a lot with definitions and kind of giving me an overall picture of what is the industry. And then the New Tycoons book kind of was more of a contextual book, I would say. It kind of gave a history of what private equity was like a few years ago in the 90s, etc., and kind of what it's grown into now. So two very different books kind of gave me a more well-rounded experience like that. So those two books help. I would also say YouTube was a big help as well. YouTube is always great. You can learn anything from YouTube. So there's a lot of great videos that describe what is private equity as well. So
yeah, that private equity playbook by Adam Kofi, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, really that excellent, easy to digest book, right?
Yeah.
And I like the angle of it's almost written in a way to managers of companies who have that private equity exit in mind, and all these new concepts and jargon demystified.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's so well written to the point. Again, I couldn't recommend that enough to not just people aspiring to be in private equity, but perhaps people in finance in general to understand the importance of private equity. And actually companies nowadays increasingly look to private equity as an exit. And then in terms of, so we talk about entry, exit of private equity, perhaps if we spin it around a bit and talk about the investors side of things, from what you've read, what you've come across, how would you categorize the different types of investors?
So we have institutional investors. So those are pension funds, Taft-Hartleys, like the big kind of, I guess, institutions that, with pension companies, they are trying to invest so they can generate more returns for the pensioners that are investing with them, for example. We have family offices. So those are, kind of what it is, family offices that are also trying to, grow returns like that. You can have high net worth individuals. So those are the people that obviously have a lot of finance that they kind of just want to invest and grow like that. So those are kind of three different investors that could be interested in private equity.
And do they have different returns profiles?
It depends.
Okay.
It really does depend per person or company by company.
Oh, it's interesting. I think there's so much here for audience to take away in terms of not just, hey, this is what to expect in private equity role, but the whys, the reason why someone would do a deal in private equity. And those books you mentioned, I think, are golden tickets. And you said YouTube too, so there's some good content out there from, I imagine, people like yourself who've recently been in the industry, giving their take, a day in the life kind of thing.
Yeah. So people like that, you can also just have, when it's just the screen and it's a whiteboard and they're saying what is private equity and they're breaking it down like that. Anything that kind of works for you. For me, it was kind of a mixture of everything. Anything that I found useful or engaging, I watched. So yeah, but there's a lot of different types of content out there.
I see. So it's just a case of refining through all those
YouTube
videos, what works, what doesn't.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Well, it's good to hear that you took a good approach in that month leading up to the start of Hamilton Lane. And you did say that they do provide training. And I guess most of our audience can expect, if they work in the financial industry, some degree of training when they join. And so they don't have to learn or reinvent the wheel before they even join, right?
No, definitely. They're not expecting you to know. I know everyone says that, they're not expecting you to know anything when you get in there, but it really is true. They can't expect much, especially if this is your first job like it was mine. I didn't know how the corporate world would be. I didn't know what to expect day to day. They will train you. They will give you everything you need to know. They will break it down for you step by step, because honestly, I think that's the best way that they can have use of you, I guess, because if they don't train you next week or in 2 weeks, it's going to be the same. You're going to be making the same mistakes. Not that it's bad to make mistakes, but they will kind of let you know what you need to do. And that's how you kind of learn. You build up on what you didn't know before. By the next week, you kind of know what to do now. You're learning new things. You're finding new things that you didn't know before that now you need to ask on. So they will teach you everything. And I feel like my training has been very in-depth.
Excellent. Yeah. And clearly, if you've converted your internship, that's clearly been reflected in the quality of the work. And going back to the start of the internship, is there perhaps one topic or technical area that, having known that before rather than on the job, you would have been at even more of an advantage or would have helped your work? Anything to do with financial analysis or valuation or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say Excel is still Me and Excel are still trying to
Gel.
become friends. Yeah, I would say that. No, definitely in university, my work wasn't very Excel based. So I'd coming in, I didn't have a lot of, I knew the basics. I didn't know how, I still don't know what a pivot table is. I will learn, but
Agreed.
I feel like, Excel is definitely something that I'm still having to work on myself. And the job is, I wouldn't say heavily Excel based, but there is some things I still need to learn. So Excel, coming in with Excel knowledge, or as much as I do that they've taught me now at the start, would have been great.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
controversial opinion on pivot tables, so I won't go into
Yeah,
that.
well,
But
it's good.
would you reassure listeners that actually Excel is easy to learn and it just takes hours and practice in order to get familiar with it, rather
Definitely.
than something that's going to take forever and a lot of time and effort to learn?
Definitely. By the beginning of my training, I was still using my mouse to click on every cell. Now I can do it without my mouse, and it only took me a couple of weeks. I can now go to the bottom of a table without having to scroll, all those things, all those little things that you feel like wouldn't make you efficient, they really do. And I learned it in just a few weeks. And we had a few Excel basic trainings, and you just have to soak it all in, and I can now do everything without my mouse.
So an Excel wizard in the making.
No, hopefully, maybe soon, but no, I am
Perfect.
taking it one step at a time, but I've definitely learned a lot.
It does make a difference because you do hear stories of associates removing mouses
Yes,
for analysts
I've
and
heard that. They
interns.
didn't do that for us, but they did say, try not to use it. I did try and sneak it a few times.
Yeah, there's a
you get
few
used to it.
like unspoken laws and conventions,
Yes.
like pop in the F1 key and that help
Exactly.
screen coming up on Excel. Or I think using shortcuts is a lifesaver, isn't
Such
it?
a lifesaver.
And actually, it saves so much time, especially if you're tight for time, working on a deadline, and have other things to do. Being able to navigate your way through PowerPoint as well as Excel, would you agree, would shave a lot of time and effort?
It makes you so much efficient. The Alt key is your best friend.
Oh, yeah.
Using without using your mouth and just using the keypads, it saves so much time. You don't even realize how much time you're like shaving off the work because you're just able to just do it so much quickly.
Yeah, and with the Alt key, you can learn as you do it because it just
It tells
displays
you.
all the shortcuts
Exactly.
at the top of the screen
Yeah.
too. I would echo that, that sort of forcing yourself to go through the struggle of learning that will ultimately pay off. And when people are seeing you just like tap away at the keyboard a year later and wonder what you're doing or how you've gone something so quickly,
Exactly.
actually you're saving time, effort, and it's good for everyone.
Exactly. And it really just takes so much more practice. It really does. So just keep at it. It can be a bit monotonous at times, but it really does help a lot.
And that feeds into another question: is attention to detail. So, from my experience, this is crucial in financial industry in general. How have you noticed that within private equity, and also the jump from, say, university degree and dissertations and whatnot there into a job crunching numbers and the attention to detail in that respect?
It's definitely process driven. Everything, if I can say one thing, do not double check. Don't triple check. Quadruple check your work, because you don't want to be sending something to your manager that has a spelling mistake or something that you should have checked over, but there's a little mistake there. And it does happen from time to time, of course it does. But get used to the art of going over your work multiple times before you send it off, because you're trying to build that trust with your manager. So if they see that you're continuously making errors that you really shouldn't be, that's not really going to put you in the best light. And I feel like you do learn that in your in university as well. Your lecturers will point out, I have had a few, that I should have double checked or triple checked, spelling mistake, grammatical error. Dissertation was definitely the one where I had to learn, because you're reading, I think my dissertation was, oh goodness, like 60 pages. So reading that over and over again just to find spelling mistakes and grammatical errors definitely was long, but it was worth it, because I don't think I got any feedback on grammar or spelling. So it pays off.
Good.
It does.
It
Yeah.
does. And it's good setting up for
Exactly.
the role in
Yeah.
the industry.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
get used to
agree.
it.
And actually, that process-driven approach and actually being structured in where to check is so important, because if you're getting the footnote sequence wrong, the logo misaligned, and it can, I imagine at times in some areas, get pedantic when it comes subtitle fonts and capitalized first letter, not every single word. Having said that, you want that consistency and professionalism to reflect in the work output, so that any clients or investors can see that and
Exactly.
I think it's reputational related, isn't
Definitely,
it? In a way?
100%. Yeah, they do tell us at work, you shouldn't be able to tell who has done this or who has done that because it should be just standardized across the whole firm.
Yeah.
So that's why they have those processes in place, so everything is aligned, like you said, reputational. They want to provide that for clients.
Yeah, I agree. And also on the numbers as well, things like as an analyst having Excel backups, knowing where you get the figures from, so that when you're quizzed by your associate or VP on, hey, where did you get these figures from? How did you arrive?
Exactly.
You've got everything ready for that debate in a way,
Exactly.
especially when it comes, comps is a big one. Oh, why did we include this or that? So I can imagine you must have some similar experiences.
You know what? I have not started fully. I've been doing more of qualitative stuff so far. So in that sense, they'll be asking, where did you get, if you're talking about maybe the organization, where did you find the number of professionals, etc. So I feel like for Excel, or if you're doing the more writing portion of the work, it's very, very similar, where you need to back up what you're saying with the information that you're given and know where you found said information.
And where to find it. So
Exactly.
I guess the importance of the source perhaps too. And in that respect, do you have dedicated data platforms? And do you think that that's widespread across the industry, that rather going on Google and searching it, that most professional companies in private equity or investment banking have these resources which they can use to then look up?
Yeah, definitely. I think most, if not all, in the financial sector will have their dedicated sources, and they will teach you where you will find certain information, because those systems have been in place probably for years before you.
Yeah.
So everything will be there. Everything has been there since before you've been there. So yeah, you will find the information. They will tell you where to find it. It's more just so taking that in, learning, because it's going to be a big system. There's going to be so many different places, but everything will be where you need to find it. It's more so just learning where to find that.
Yeah, I know students who generally haven't had an internship yet think Bloomberg is the immediate one from the Billions TV show as that being very proliferant. And I know just how much of a nightmare it is to learn something like this, and that although there are certain functions that it takes time to grapple, but you would say that overall these are very reliable, quick, efficient platforms to then extract that
definitely,
data.
yeah. It can take a bit to learn, and that's going to be okay. You're still getting used to it, but I think by the end of your first month or 2 months, you will be very much settled in using the systems.
See, and so, I mean, you've been in the Hamilton Lane for, you said, a month or so, and have you noticed already an exponential growth in being able to use the systems, get presentations done quickly, know where to find data? Has it really been a steep learning curve?
Yes, definitely. I think with the systems that you're going to be using every day, there's probably going to be a system that you're going to be using more than others. By the end of the first week, even, you'll be quite adjusted to using it. The ones that maybe you don't use as often, you only need them for special cases. Yeah, that might take a longer time for you to adjust to, just because you're not using it that often. But it was a steep learning curve. But I think now, with the systems that I use almost daily, I'm completely fine with.
Understood. Well, I think that's been some fascinating insights into how you found private equity, and some advice as well for listeners breaking in. We're coming up to sort of peak application time right now. Maybe have a month or two. So this is some useful takeaways. And actually, I like going back to what we said about, just because one internship offer might be withdrawn or not work out, there's another 1, 2, 5, 10 perhaps on offer. So it's staying positive, keeping that mindset. And how did you keep that positive mindset throughout the whole process?
It was hard, I think anybody that says it's a breeze is probably lying.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's a very competitive industry. Like, anybody can agree to that. It can be hard, especially if you're juggling university or your apprenticeship, wherever it may be at the same time. Keeping that mindset of, I have to do another application, it can be difficult, but think about what you want to achieve. I think that was kind of, that kept me. I kept telling myself, I need to get an internship. I want to get an internship. I want to learn more about finance. This is going to help me in the long run, because you know what they say, you can't just leave university without a degree. If you did, don't panic, but the experience would be great on the side.
Yeah.
So just kind of saying that to yourself, this will help me in the long run. If you don't feel like doing the application that day or that week, fine, take a break. Don't get too burnt out at the expense of your studies at the same time. But, keep pushing yourself. If you have friends that are also trying to break into finance, for example, do applications together. Not saying you should copy each other's answers, but it can be good, telling each other, this application has just been released, or remember this deadline is coming up. Have you done your application? Helping the two of you or whoever it may be, kind of guide each other at the same time will be a great help. I found that.
You've already answered my next question, which is on the support network and how difficult it must be without that sort of buddy doing the applications with, and also feedback, because if you feel like you're in a rut at the cover letter phase or you can't break past psychometrics, having someone who's either done this before or who's doing it with you to then say, oh, have you considered ABC? Do you find that that's definitely helped?
Yes. Use all the help that you can get. I know the psychometric tests, they are very daunting and they can be very difficult, but use online resources. If somebody has had to do one and they got past it, talk to them, ask them how they learned. More likely they had their own resource that they utilized to, help them through that. Use your lecturers if you have a lecturer that you get along with, or I forgot what they call them, but your senior that you go to in university.
Yeah, the tutor, so
yeah,
to speak.
Exactly, yeah, your tutor. Use them because more likely they've gone through it. They've had students in the past go through it. They are there to help you.
Yeah.
You have guidelines there to help you. There could be societies. I know in Southampton we had a lot of societies to do with, CV help, finance, breaking into the finance industry, investment banking, etc. There will be a lot of people there to help you.
Yeah, and dedicated resources too. At York, I think the Economic Society very kindly provided, or it might have been the actual department, these free access to practice tests. I think assessment day was back in the day. And actually what's funny with psychometric tests is this idea that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. And just because you're good at numerical doesn't mean you'll be good at logical. Right. And vice versa to others. So it's practicing what works and actually getting help where needed. For me, on the numericals, it was the speed of 20 questions, 20 minutes, and the pressure and the shortcuts of, don't get bogged down into the fifth decimal place, just get a rough ballpark and get this done quickly. So when you were doing this sort of 5-phase approach of CV, cover letters, psychometrics, video interviews, calls, this was all virtual, I presume, at the time?
Yes, it was, yes.
Okay. And so in that final AC, assessment centre stage, was that again, you were being interviewed on the laptop via Zoom? And what was the format? Was that just a one-off interview? Did you have a group exercise? How did it work?
Luckily, I did not. Mine was all just one-to-one interviews, and I had about a couple. Yeah, a couple interviews. So luckily, I didn't have to do too many the group exercises, the psychometric test. I did have friends that did, unfortunately, but I think mine was a lot more of a smoother process.
Excellent.
So, but I think that's just luck. That is just luck.
It's true. And every application now is so different depending on the firm, the role. Yeah. And how technical, without going into the detail, did you feel that it was largely to do with competency or background, or were they curious to know a bit about what your thoughts were on private equity or any of the technical elements of that?
No, a bit of both actually. Okay. Definitely a lot background based. What I'm doing at university at the time. I was deciding my dissertation topic, so that was a good talking point that we discussed. Why I chose finance, why I'm interested in finance. Again, I've had friends that have had it very much more technical. What is it, LBO? What is the cash flow model? Mine was not as such technical, but they do have to kind of grasp your knowledge as well. So I think mine was definitely a lot more of a mix.
Yeah, there's definitely good cop, bad cop situations where, okay, run me through a full LBO debt schedule and can you build this from scratch? So some of the times the technical can be luck of the draw. Yes. And I feel with technical questions, it's important rather than to rehearse answers for FAQs, is have a generic understanding, but where there is a gap or you don't know, just be upfront and say, it's almost the, I think we were discussing this in the last podcast, the last time we were saying the Oxbridge approach of they ask you an impossible question, but you have to somehow come up with an answer. Right. Yeah. So my advice would be if you don't know something, but you have a rough idea, you could say, I'm not too sure, but if I was to go about this.
Yes, no, I've heard that if you don't know the answer, they kind of want to find if you would know where to search for the answer when you leave, where to find said answer, even if you don't know it.
Because that shows problem solving
Exactly.
in a way,
Initiatives,
which is
yeah.
the 101 of
Exactly.
what it is. I mean, the amount of times as an analyst where someone tells you to do something and you don't know where to look or if it's right and whatnot. And does a lot of self-reliance and self-discipline come into that in general, not just for the application process, but for landing the role itself?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think it's a lot of perseverance, especially if you are getting rejection after rejection, and that's not a reflection on you. Like we said, it's completely competitive. There's going to be so many people in the same boat as you, so don't get discouraged. If you are finding that you're getting rejected more than you're being accepted, it's going to happen. It's happened to probably the best of us. It's just a part of the application process, I guess. So don't give up. Keep persevering. It is a lot of self-discipline doing the applications and going forth into the job, because it is a big shift from university, but you will get used to it in time.
It's a numbers game, and it's definitely nothing personal. In fact, a lot of the time there's a real systematic approach where companies might, even to an extent, have automated systems saying, oh, yes, no, or even then how much time is being spent on CV per CV. Exactly. It's not, sometimes it's luck of the draw in a way, right? Yeah. So did you find that perseverance is one of the key factors that helped you move past that?
100%, because it is hard when it gets to the point you're on your 10th rejection, you see no end in sight. It is perseverance, because if I gave up, I wouldn't be here right now, So you just have to keep going. That you don't need you just need one yes. No, very corny, but you just need one yes, and that one yes could take you so far. Even if you're getting so many no's, you just need that one. So don't give up.
Overlaps with not just finance and the application, but beyond that, starting a company, all it takes is just one investor to say yes or anything. So being able to juggle an application process with degrees and a social life while at university, challenge.
They never said it will be easy.
No.
But, you will get there. Before you have done it, you will also be able to do it.
Yeah, there's a system, and I think, like you said, lean on existing resources, finance societies, alumni, all that good stuff. Excellent. And actually, for the last part of the podcast, something which I was really curious to talk a bit more about, which we mentioned at the start, was diversity and inclusiveness. So this is a big topic and very dear actually to me, in terms of we're seeing, like you mentioned, 10,000 Black Interns, more and more initiatives that are helping move the ball in the right direction. What are your views of diversity in the financial industry at the moment? And what can we do going forward to keep building momentum?
Oh, yeah, no. I think in the financial industry, or I think in most industry, it can be improved. I think nowhere is nowhere near perfect, but at least what we're seeing is improvements being made, with 10,000 Black Interns, with SEO London, with all these kind of initiatives that are trying to close that gap. I think the more that we can see that things are being done, at least to close that gap, get more diversity and inclusion out there, not just for Black students, but any race, any kind of social sector, anything within all industries. With finance, I know that it's a big thing, the gap between ethnic minorities or anybody that kind of fits into the not circle, I guess, that we're used to. I think that being able to be part of 10,000 Black Interns is such an honor, because they're really trying to make a change and they're doing so well at it. The change is coming, and I hope it continues to grow and grow and grow, because I think everyone deserves the same equal opportunities. So
yeah, and it's also a talking point, isn't it, that people in finance get so caught up in the job and the world and the work that it's important for us to stop, make time for a chat, a conversation, listening each other's perspectives. Perhaps that's what we need more as well, is bringing this more into the conversation and making this more of a day-to-day talking point too. I know there are initiatives across various banks, some great programs, like you mentioned, 10,000 Black Interns. So maybe a bit of both will help us going forwards. And what would you advise to other people who are exactly in the same position, in terms of they're not too sure where to look, those opportunities might not be as prevalent from what they've understood or heard about? Is it more of the same in terms of perseverance? Is there a particular program to go for? What's your advice?
Honestly, Google will be your best friend, because you can find maybe the most obscure a scholarship. It doesn't even have to be an initiative. You can find scholarships that cater more to your background, with if you have contextual background, or for example, it unfortunately it will be up to you to find those things. They could be very deep down into your searching until you find it, but there will be something, hopefully something out there for you to, to utilize, to use, to get you that, the best chance possible. It will be perseverance in that sense, but utilize the resources that you have. I'm sure you'll have friends or family that might have heard of a scholarship or an initiative that you could benefit from. That's how I found it. My mom sent 10,000 Black Interns to me, and if she didn't, I don't know if I would have heard about it in time for the application. So use the resources that you have. Look for yourself as well. Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's good advice. And a close friend of mine was doing a Women in Finance initiative, and what they found, it was actually more personable and easier to talk to them because it was a particular sort of mindset going in, but also audience at the end of the day.
Right.
And they felt more at ease, more comfortable to actually ask whatever questions they want. So perhaps that should be viewed as a big positive thing for seeking out these kind of areas too, rather than maybe just focusing on the general application in their remit, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think that's been so good to talk about, obviously, private equity, the analyst, how you got in, some top tips, and finishing up with diversity. So perhaps if we wrap up, what's the one last piece of advice you would give our listeners who are looking to break into the industry, secure that full-time offer from the internship? Your last bit of wisdom for today's episode.
So corny. Show enthusiasm, honestly, with every day, even if you're having a bad day, just show that you want to be there, because nobody wants to hire someone that doesn't want to be there, right? So continue to show that you're enjoying the work. If you're not, then at least you know that maybe this isn't for you. You want to look into another industry or another part of finance. But I think internships are a great way to figure out what you do like and maybe what you also don't like. But do it with enthusiasm, do it with a smile, and then you can learn, what's best for you in the future.
Sure, and even if whatever happens, it's not your day, it's iceberg effect. Smile on the face,
exactly.
Show up, and then, deal with it and move on.
Because that one smile that day could really, it could be that clicking point for your manager to be like, yes, we want her to stay till next year.
Keep smiling.
Exactly.
Onward and upward. Perfect. Well, Tolly, it's been such a pleasure having you on the interview. Really enjoyed our discussion today. And I look forward to keeping in touch.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the follow and subscribe button to keep up to date with our latest episodes. For more content and resources, check out Financial Edge Training's website and social accounts. Financial Edge is trusted to train new hires at top investment banks. Our courses, resources, and tools will help you to succeed in finance.